It's a lonely process.
I knew that I needed help. The loss was larger than I could handle, and I knew that I needed to reach out and find support.
It's as if somebody's gone to the filing cabinet of your life, and they've pulled that filing cabinet out, and they've brought it to the kitchen floor, and they've turned it over and dumped it out.
When she was taken from us, we were thrown as a family into such chaos. It was truly the darkest times of our lives.
You know, your world's turned upside down, and life as you knew it ceased to exist. Your relationship with friends changed. Your relationship with your colleagues at work changed. And the lens with which you view the world changes to a large extent. And shortly after the funeral, you kind of resent the fact that the rest of the world is going back to their lives.
There was so much anger and so much confusion and so much questioning on what we could have done differently. We were lost. We were lost.
I lost my son, Brandon. It was about 7 years ago. It was very sudden. And shortly after the loss, I was in a very dark place.
It affected me on a visceral level. I mean, it basically took life as I understood it and my priorities and turned them around on their head.
The house was quiet, and it was just, I was pretty numb. Getting up in the morning was difficult. You know, getting through each day was tremendously difficult. And
it felt like I lost both arms, both legs, my eyesight, and the ability to speak.
I didn't even know, how I was going to make it through each day.
When I first walked in the door, all I did was hug her, and we cried because I knew what she was going through and how sad she was and how broken she was and how lost she was, because she was still very early. He'd only died a month before. But probably the most important thing I did with her was just let her talk and listen and confirm.
Julie was able to help me in ways that I didn't even realize, and I don't even know if she realized at the time. But being with somebody that could understand the feelings that I was feeling, I mean, I had feelings that I didn't even understand myself, but just sitting with her and being able to express it, whether it was right or wrong or these feelings were good or bad feelings, I could be honest with her and share things with her that I couldn't share with anyone else. And I just felt safe with her because nothing that I said was she critical of. She just seemed to understand.
It assigns instant credibility, respect to the process that's unfolding minute by minute, hour by hour, because it's ever changing. And there's nothing like real life experience as being the ultimate guide and teacher compared to all of the forms of learning. So we learn most by those that have walked the path before us.
I don't think that anybody helps you lessen your burden. I don't think anybody helps you make it go faster. You won't grieve faster by having a peer or having someone who's walked that walk before you and is willing to walk with you. But what it does do is soften your grief. It makes it more bearable to know that somebody else out there has experienced this and is sitting across from you and functioning. And to be able to look at that person and say, I can get there because she did it. I can get there. That is an invaluable experience and a gift.
One of the things that I've learned through the years in working with families, and I've been doing it almost 30 years now, is that every loss experience, though similar in the way that people process, is very unique to the individual.
Grief is a very personal journey, and we all experience different needs. We come from different walks of life, and we have different life's experiences, and certain aspects of grief services as they were offered when we lost our daughter didn't necessarily marry up with what our needs were.
I think the biggest challenge facing the traditional forms of support that are available for families today, I think the biggest challenge they have is getting connected in a personal way.
Right now, all that we see out there is group support. There's different organizations that can provide that locally, but there really isn't anything that provides one-on-one support.
There's not a sense that you really understand how I'm hurting, and until people believe that you know what it feels like to be in their shoes, it's going to be very hard for them to open themselves up.
We chose to seek help through clergy, through grief therapists, through group therapy, and while we did gain some insight from each of those paths, the people that I actually had the most connection with and gained the most help from were talking to other bereaved parents, those that have lost children of their own.
I think once you've experienced a significant loss, you come to a knowledge that you cannot know, you cannot read about, you can't learn about it any other way except experiencing the loss and walking through that loss. And so each of our counselors is uniquely prepared to offer support for a specific loss, for a specific journey.
So someone who has had a very similar loss of a spouse, loss of a child, loss of a brother or sister, and putting with someone that you know has been there, but also someone you can identify with as a peer.
The idea is that those that are further along in their grief journey would then turn to those that are fresh in their grief to provide compassionate listening, support, and just be there at a scheduled time for that individual. We are not therapists, we are just people that care and have walked the walk and can truly understand.
There are many organizations trying to achieve good things for people at the time of loss. I think this organization is probably the most effective model that I've come across in 30 years in this business.
Lift, which is to lift that spirit, to lift that soul, because clearly after grief you're down, and anything that we can do to elevate that person, that's really what we're about.
Our love is demonstrated through the fact that we're willing to be present in their pain and suffering as it changes over time.
And then live is just getting back to living everyday life. I mean, early on it doesn't seem possible, but over time it can happen.
It's incredibly rewarding to know that we took the darkest time of our life and turned it into something that could help other people who've experienced that kind of devastation. And I can tell you that every one of our peer counselors will tell you this. We'd trade that all in to have them back. We'd trade that knowledge in just to have them back. But we're not given that choice. So the choice we are given is to either move on and help or stay stuck in the darkness. And taking the choice to move on is a very rewarding choice.